General, thank you so much for joining me on the record.
Good to be with you.
I want to kick off by asking you to sort of walk me through how you see America's war with Iran today.
Well, from a military standpoint, I think the CENTCOM and the military forces under them are pretty much executing the plan that we had in place to deal with Iran for a number of years. So they're very clearly going after military-related targets that are kind of associated with the overall objectives that the United States has. So we're very much going after their war-making capability, their missiles, their drones, their navy, their shore-based systems, their ability to project power beyond their borders is, I think, a big focus for us. And of course, we've also been heavily focused on their command and control and their leadership, disrupting that and making it harder for the regime to do what it's doing. I think it's important to appreciate that Iran's had decades to develop these capabilities. And in many ways, they're somewhat sophisticated. So the fact that it is taking weeks to do this is not beyond what we would have expected in the current plan. So I think from a military standpoint, I think we're executing the plan. And I think Iran is responding about the way that we would have expected them to respond. Certainly lashing out. We saw large volleys in the first couple of days, but of course that's dissipated a little bit now. But we continue to see them shooting missiles and drones and much smaller numbers at vulnerable targets, lucrative targets from their perspective.
So you're not surprised by how long this seems to be taking?
No, I think Iran's strategy here is, I've described it by two words: broaden and expand. Trying to broaden the surface of the places they're going after. So they've gone after 12 or 13 different countries right now. So broaden it out, but then also extend it in time. I think they're aware of how sensitive we are to time, how sensitive the American public is to lengthy campaigns, and I think they're going to try to drag it out as much as they can.
How would you gauge the success so far?
Well, again, I think from a military standpoint, I think we've been very, very successful. I think we've reduced a lot of their capability. We've gone after just look at the missile system, for example. Not only have we gone after missiles, we've gone after launchers, we've gone after the production factories for things, we've gone after storage locations, we've gone after the command and control networks. So we've really, I think, done serious damage to that system. But it's not completely eliminated. And I don't think that was an expectation, or we'd be able to eliminate everything right away. It's going to take time to do that. And I think that's what CENTCOM has done. So from a military standpoint, I think we're meeting the objectives that we had established for us and the things that we wanted to do, with the acknowledgement that Iran was going to fight back. And they're going to try to preserve their capabilities. They're going to try to lash out where and when they can, and we're going to have to deal with that.
You keep mentioning the plan. Was the plan always regime change?
Well, from a military standpoint, it was not regime change. It's about compelling Iran to abandon their nuclear ambitions and to prevent them from, employing their military capabilities beyond their borders.
And you would say, where are we in this plan so far? Because it's been 3 weeks.
Yeah, well, it's actually been more than 3 weeks. So now we're in the fourth week here, and I think they are on pace. I think where we would expect to be.
Yeah, but they've shut down one of the busiest waterways in the world.
They have, and I think we expected that would likely happen. I mean, that's a very.
How did we not know that they had that capability?
Well,
with the trillions of dollars spent on the Fifth Fleet over many years. I've been out there to, the USS Abraham Lincoln. I've been out there to the minesweepers. I've seen the massive American operation.
I think the Fifth Fleet, I think CENTCOM, I think everybody in the military recognized that they would do that. That was a natural reaction that we would expect from the Iranians. So from a military standpoint, again, I think that's the response. That's one of the responses, in addition to them launching missiles and drones and doing other things that we would expect that they'd try to do.
So it's no surprise to you that they would shut down?
It's not surprise to me as a military, somebody who spent a lot of time in the region, and a former CENTCOM commander, that they would attempt to shut that down, and for the most part shut it down.
Yeah. When you think about that from the military perspective, what is the best defense?
Well, the best defense is, I think, what we were doing is to go after their capabilities to effectively shut this down. So, we've gone after their missiles, we've gone after their navy, we've gone heavily after their drones, we've gone after a lot of their shore-based systems, we've gone after their command and control sites, and then recently we've taken things like A-10s and Apache helicopters and gone after their FACs and FIACs, these small boats that they have that we've all seen in the Straits of Hormuz and in the Arabian Gulf that they use to get out and exert their own authority. So you have to go after those things to really make it difficult for them to effectively shut this down.
So if you were to look at this from purely a military standpoint, how much longer do you anticipate this conflict could take to achieve victory?
Well, war is a political state. It's a political choice to go to war. So the military is conducting operations that are designed to support that, but there also has to be a kind of a diplomatic or a political aspect to this. We're beginning, I think, to see some of that right now.
An end game.
An end game, some kind of discussion, some kind of movement towards a cessation of hostilities of some sort that allows, things to move back more in the direction of normality in the region. So I think both of those things are going to have to happen. The military by itself can do a lot of damage. We can open the Straits of Hormuz, but we're going to unless we get to some kind of political agreement.
How would we open them?
Well, the U.S. Navy capacity, I think, has the ability to do that. We have within our U.S. Navy fleet, we have the destroyers, we have the littoral combat ships, we have mine countermeasure ships that can be used for this. We have considerable.
What's holding them back, do you think?
I think
if we can fix this, because the international commercial world would want that to happen as quickly as possible.
Well, I think perhaps when you look at the plan, the movement of commerce through the Straits of Hormuz may not be the priority right now. Maybe the priority is likely focused on removing Iran's war-making capability.
At the expense of, this is basically at the expense of oil prices in the markets.
I think that's exactly right.
So in your mind, the president, I don't
know if the president is, but there are, you can't do everything at once. So they've prioritized the destruction of military capabilities that Iran has. And of course, Iran has taken actions that have kind of shut down, at least definitely slowed some of the movement. I guess there's been some vessels that have gone through, maybe with their acquiescence through the straits here. But, the priority has been going after the military capabilities that Iran has within their borders.
Tell me this, the perception sometimes can become a reality. In your mind, is the United States military still feared?
Oh, I absolutely think they are feared, absolutely. Well, I think what they're doing now, what you've seen them do in Venezuela, pulling off a very sophisticated operation there, what we were able to do last June with our bombers going in and very precisely targeting the nuclear weapons sites, I think is something that China and Russia and others have to pay attention to and have to respect.
But Iran has generally been considered an inferior enemy, and this is taking quite a while. And many would say, what does that mean for bigger conflicts, like a peer-to-peer conflict with China?
Well, I mean, I guess I would challenge the notion that this is taking a while. I think this is taking about as long as we expected it to have from a military standpoint. I mean, Iran is a country that is larger than the state of Alaska. It has very varied terrain. It has a regime and a military that's been in position for decades, that's had the ability to put things on the ground, that has reacted to things, has learned from previous incidents they've been involved in with us and with others across the region, and has prepared for this. And so, they're certainly not shooting the same size of volleys as they were in the early days, but they are shooting outside. And so we have to respond to that. So, and they are leveraging their asymmetric capabilities.
Yeah.
And so that becomes a challenge, I think, for us. And it's not insurmountable, but it is a challenge that we have to deal with right now.
Do you see the military as having been prepared for that asymmetrical component? I mean, were we prepared for the drones?
I think we have seen the movement towards drone warfare for some time now. We certainly watched that take place in Ukraine, and we're studying that like everybody else is. I mean, I would just remind you and your listeners that it was the United States is the one that kind of led the way into drone technology with our own use of drones for surveillance and strikes and other things. So we're not incapable of doing all this. The numbers that they have, I think we've, for the most part, the defensive capabilities we've had in place, I think have prevented more catastrophic things from happening. I mean, I'm not minimizing any of the strikes that Iran has been able to launch on any countries, but it could have been much worse. And I think going in very heavy in the early days, I think has helped stunt some of that and slowed them down so that we can respond to this. Our interceptors can respond to the threats that are coming.
Have you been surprised by the lack of support we've seen globally? And I'm talking about European nations, NATO members. It took them quite a long time to get in the game.
Well, my experience as the CENTCOM commander, as a military officer, in serving in a whole variety of coalition type operations, is that you have to build you build coalitions in advance. You get people aligned around objectives and around the purposes of things.
Which wasn't done in this case.
And it does not appear to me that this was done in this case, and that's got to be done up front. When we went against ISIS, we built a coalition in advance. And we had 79 nations, entities that kind of came in and provided capabilities or support in one way or the other that really helped us contribute to the mission. We went to Afghanistan, we did the same thing. We went to Iraq the first time, we did the same thing. Yeah. So, coalition warfare is the way that we fight. And the way that you build coalitions is in advance. You engage partners and you work through issues and you understand, people's caveats and what they can contribute and what they can't, and then you try to meld that as best you can into the most cohesive military force, at least from a military standpoint, the military force that you can field. And we've done that very successfully in the past.
Tell me this, with your knowledge of what capabilities we have right now in the Gulf, and as the military as a whole, how quickly could we get the Strait of Hormuz reopened if we wanted to?
I think it's probably weeks to do that, maybe a little bit faster. What has to happen is we have to take a lot of our warships that are now focused on doing other operations that have to be redirected towards this. We will have to get mine countermeasures ships in place to kind of proof those lanes so we can give confidence to the merchant mariners that are moving through this area that the very small, narrow passage through that strait we're confident that there's not mines in it. Yeah. We have got to maintain air cover over that whole area and surveillance. So as we're doing this, we've got good coverage of all of that. So that takes days and perhaps weeks to kind of get into position.
So reestablishing those global links when it comes to oil, LNG, and other logistics that go through the Strait of Hormuz, those guys are going to have to sit tight for a while.
I think they're going to. I mean, again, I'm not seeing everything that CENTCOM is doing now. I think they're pretty proactive headquarters. So they're probably beginning to get things in place, so they may be able to move a little bit faster. But it takes time to, that's a major operation that we're going to have to create and then sustain for a period of time until some agreement is made that allows that to be done without military force.
In terms of greasing the wheels, NATO, in your mind, what do those member countries need to be doing to assist us?
Well, when you say NATO, do you mean the European countries?
European countries who have agreed to help.
Yeah, well, I think certainly if they have hard capacity that they're going to be able to provide to us, whether that is ships like destroyers, for example, an operation like this will take anywhere from 12 to 15, maybe more destroyers to help with escort operations. So we need to get those in the region. Some of those countries have some unique capabilities like mine sweeping. Very advanced ships that are designed to do that. If we get those moved down there, that'd be great. If they can provide aircraft that can help with surveillance or maybe with providing air caps over the top of this, that would be good as well. So I think what they ought to be doing now, if they're going to assist with this, is start getting their resources in position so that we can integrate them into more of a coalition response to how we open up the Straits of Hormuz.
Now, what about the Gulf countries? What contributions should they be making, if any?
Most of them don't have large navies or large maritime components. So, I think the best thing they can do is continue to make sure that their defensive capabilities are up, as integrated as they can be among themselves. That's not always a strength in the Gulf. They're generally doing pretty well, but everyone is kind of on their own in terms of protecting themselves. So they've got to make sure that they continue to protect themselves with this as well.
Do you anticipate at some point, and given your history and your knowledge of the region, do you anticipate that we're going to see a more coordinated defensive posture from Gulf countries going forward? Is that something you would see as necessary?
I've been very hopeful for that for a long period of time.
And you still live in hope?
I always live in hope. It's just, it's more than just having the military capacity. It's actually having the trust between all of them, and sometimes that's hard to build across the region.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful that they will. I mean, we've seen some instances where there has been good cooperation between the countries, but a Gulf-wide integrated air defense capability would be magnificent. But it would take some effort to do it. Maybe this will be the impetus to actually do this.
Talk to me about Diego Garcia. Do we think Iran has the potential or has the capability to hit?
Well, I mean, they have some missiles that I think have some extraordinarily long ranges now. Whether they still can muster that and go after Diego Garcia, I think we have to respect the capability that within their inventory and what we know of them, they have some of this capability. So whether they can do it or not, that's another thing. But I think we have to expect that anything in the region, and I would extend it out to Diego Garcia, is vulnerable to attack from Iran.
Yeah.
And it's important to appreciate that to Iran, this is existential. This is existential for the remnants of the regime. If they don't prevail in this in some way, if they don't survive in this, they're out. And that's a real problem, I think, for them. So they're going to do everything they can to try to drag this out, to try to stay in power.
Tell me this. What do you think our adversaries are learning about our capabilities?
Well, I think they're learning that the United States maintains the ability to bring large military forces together and concentrate them in an effective way to do a lot of damage on an adversary. I think that's the first thing. I think secondly, they're learning that our command and control is very good. We're able to coordinate sophisticated operations over a broad area here and be successful with it. And I think we're demonstrating kind of the effectiveness of our high-end systems here. THAADs and Patriots have operated pretty well. Our fifth-generation fighters are doing pretty good job, and so the capabilities of our equipment, I think, remain very, very high. So I think they've got to be looking at how we're doing this and again, maintaining a very healthy respect for what the United States can do.
Yeah. Do you think that this in any way changes the calculus in Beijing when it comes to Taiwan?
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, I think perhaps it does. I think the Chinese are expert at studying conflict and understanding what's happening and trying to apply those lessons. That's essentially what they started doing to us after Desert Storm, 30 years ago. When we did that, they understood our focus on precision and the systems we were doing, and have really kind of to design their military for that. So I think they will continue to apply these lessons. They may be taking some lessons from some of the challenges we had on kind of working with coalition partners. That would be something I think might be noteworthy to them. So I'm sure they're paying a lot of attention to this. I mean, projecting power over a long distance, in this case for China, over 100 miles of open water over the Taiwan Straits there is significant. That's a significant military operation. And especially when you come up against a country that's been preparing for that, as Taiwan has been. Now, seriously, for the last several years of trying to become the so-called porcupine, very, very difficult to penetrate into. So, I mean, they've got to be looking at how Iran is responding to this and what the effects of that.
You think that
will be on
Taiwan
them.
could put up a similar fight?
I think, I don't, whether they can or not, we don't know that. I hope that they are able to defend themselves. I think they should count on that. We should be counting on them being able to do a lot in their own defense as well. So perhaps this will be more motivation for the Taiwanese to make sure that they have got the integrated defense that they require for this.
The tyranny of distance is something you mentioned. That's something that obviously has weighed heavily on military planning, depending on whether we're talking about tonnage and the lack thereof, in terms of getting logistic support to troops potentially in the South China Sea. How do you rate America's ability today to defend Taiwan?
Well, I'll just caveat and tell you I'm not a Pacific expert here. My experience is largely in the Middle East, so I'll just say that up front. Yeah, I think we do some challenges in terms of pushing forward our capability and then being able to sustain it. The distances that we're operating at right now are I think are pretty significant. Getting into the Middle East and moving power out there, it's even greater out into the Pacific, and we don't necessarily enjoy the same number of large bases. We have some bases certainly in the region there, but again, the distances between those bases and where we're trying to apply military power are great. So if you look at Japan, or you look at Korea, or you look at the Philippines, those would be far away from where we are trying to do things. So the logistics of operating in the Pacific, I think, are significant, and I think that's that could be a challenge for us.
Yeah.
Being able to have the depth of magazines, munition magazines that we require for not only for offensive operations, but for defensive operations, for our protection, for the protection of our partners, I think it could be a significant challenge for us, and I would hope it is one that we are taking seriously and addressing.
Yeah, when you think about this, just purely from the optics of the situation, the White House is taking flack, not just in the United States, obviously, from the press, but internationally as well, for the length of this operation. But in your mind, this is an operation that hasn't failed insofar as achieving the objectives of the plan, a plan that the military has always had.
I think this looks like the plan that I thought we would be executing here, and how it would play out over time. I don't think you can go and do an operation like we're trying to do. You can't draw an equivalent between this and what happened in Venezuela. It's just not. It's a completely different situation. Each of these military situations we find in has to be dealt with on its own merits and on the own conditions that exist.
So the confusion in the markets, the confusion in the public space about what we're trying to achieve here, who's at fault there? If there was always a plan, is this just bad communication from the White House?
Well, perhaps it could be. I think the role of the U.S. government, I think, is to communicate. One of the roles is to communicate and let people know what's happening and do things in advance so that people have an understanding.
Like our allies.
We talked about that, but you think back to Desert Storm, think back to going into Iraq the last time, or in 2003, the amount of effort that was put into preparing the public, preparing Congress, talking to our international partners, and I presume talking to the markets. I think that's
so that could be priced in.
Yeah, that should be priced in. That should be part of what we do, I think.
Yeah.
I think there are certain times when you have to have absolute surprise in military operations. Venezuela is a good example right there.
Yeah.
Short duration. We get in, we had a build-up, so people kind of knew something was happening. We did the operation, we got out, and it was pretty much done, and there was not a significant wake that was created by this. Larger operations like this create a much bigger wake, and you have to prepare people for that, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm not here to critique the U.S. government and the administration how it does that, but my observation is that we should be doing that. We should be doing a lot of that in advance, and we should be doing it continuously, as I think we probably are right now.
From a military perspective, what would be the barometer of success?
I think the barometer of success is going to be that Iran cannot effectively employ military capabilities beyond their borders. And
we're talking not just what they're doing to the Gulf countries, but also Hezbollah and the Houthis.
Yeah, I think that's right. That whole organism that they've created that supports the regime, the proxies, the missile systems, the pursuit of nuclear weapons, the drones, and other things like that, all of that has to be set back to a degree that it cannot be a threat. And I don't mean that they might not be able to get one or twos out on that, but that there is an effective defense in place that can prevent that. It's much like terrorism. We aren't going to get rid of all the terrorists, but we can train people to be prepared to deal with that. We can address the underlying issues that are associated with that. We can minimize the threat to the most significant part. I think that's going to be important, and of course that includes the nuclear weapons program, not having the capacity to do that. So at some point we will need to make sure they don't have that capacity. That the remnants of that highly enriched uranium are withdrawn and put someplace for safekeeping so that they can't be used for weaponization by the Iranians.
Was that part of the plans that you were aware of during your time as CENTCOM?
Yeah, I won't get too much into that. I mean, that situation has changed over time. I mean, where Iran is today in terms of enrichment is much different than it was when I was CENTCOM commander. For a portion of the time I was a CENTCOM commander, the JCPOA was in place. So that was the measure that we were using, and international observers going in and assessing, and we understood what was happening there. So it's a different situation. We weren't worried about going in and recovering something that hadn't yet been developed. That's a new challenge.
And finally, the realignment of the region that we've seen since President Trump started his tenure this second time around. In your mind, are we in a safer position as the United States?
Well, from a broad standpoint, I think we are addressing the Iranian regime problem. I think has been a significant challenge for us across the region for a long time. Getting rid of Assad in Syria, done by an opposition force there, but our quick recognition of the interim government there, I think, is an important part. Getting a competent leader in place in Lebanon. I think all of these are things that have happened over the last 14 or 15 months that are good things for the region, and I think begin to portend it. Of course, there's a lot of conflict going on, as we know, not just in Iran, but in Lebanon as well. That's an area we haven't talked about, but that's pretty significant as well. I think what we have to do is, at some point, we need to consolidate these gains.
Yeah.
And
what does that look like?
What that means, for example, helping President Aoun and the Lebanese armed forces, making sure they have the capabilities, they have all the resources they need to get rid of Hezbollah on their own.
Yeah.
Without requiring Israel to go in and do it.
Yeah.
We need to do that.
He's been asking for a long time for us to support him.
I know he has, and he's a very good man, and I'm very confident in him. Why
haven't we done it, in your mind? Is it because of Israel?
I don't know. I really can't explain that. That probably is a question better for the administration to decide. I mean, we haven't made that a priority, I don't think, to do that. I think we have largely put it on the backs of the Lebanese to solve this, with some assistance.
But was that fair?
Well, I don't know I won't make a determination whether it's fair. I don't know that it was right, is I guess what I would say. I think Lebanon has been a good partner to us for a long period of time. They have suffered, or people have suffered there for a long period of time. It's in our interests for Lebanon to be stable. It's in our interests for Syria to be stable. The new regime, again, the very interesting makeup of the new regime. And I had the opportunity to meet a number of their ministers, some of whom I fought against not that long ago. But they are focused on making sure that Syria is not a threat to the rest of the region. And I believe them when they say that. But we've got to help them address some of their issues. The United States has got to help play a role in that. We don't have to be the lead. We don't have to give all of our money to it, but we have to provide support for that notion of kind of consolidating that game. Moving on with Gaza is another area. I mean, this is a long time. The president has done a good job exerting his will, getting that to, phase 2 here. We've got to kind of see that through. So, and it'll be the same thing in Iran. We've got to consolidate whatever end state that we end up at. We have to consolidate it so that the area can become more stable. And these things that we've done, these investments we've made, huge investments that we've made, really count for something and last for a long period of time and move the whole region in the direction of stability.
For many decades now, we've talked about Iran being the great destabilizer in the Middle East. Many today would say it's Israel.
Stabilizer or destabilizer?
Destabilizer.
Well, I'm not sure I would agree with that. I think Israel is responding to, a situation that was foisted upon them in October, a couple of years ago, October 7th, and they view the situation as we have to take these measures to protect ourselves, and that's what they're trying to do. So I don't think that is what they have been doing for a long period of time. They've certainly been very active militarily for the last couple of years as they've tried to push back on Iranian proxies and now Iran. It wasn't.
So when you hear that criticism, that the Israelis are dragging the United States with them, you don't see it that way?
No, I don't necessarily see that. I think the Israelis, I think we probably in our country may not remember how we felt after 9/11, and even for them, I think it's even more pronounced. I think they live in the area. I mean, it is a very difficult neighborhood for the Israelis. With Hezbollah, large Hezbollah to the north of them, with Shia militia groups, to the east, and with Iran backing all of this and moving weapons into position in Syria. I mean, it's a very difficult neighborhood for them. And I think they have said enough with this, and we're not going to allow this situation to exist anymore, and that is why they are taking actions. Whether they have drugged the United States in it, I'm not in the room. I don't know those discussions between the national leaders and such, but I think Israel is acting in their own interests as they see fit.
And tell me this, just given your knowledge of the region, do you believe that we are on track to potentially see a peace deal between Israel and Lebanon?
I don't know. I think there's a long way. There's a lot of trust building that has to take place there. We don't even have good communication or any communication between the Lebanese armed forces and the Israeli defense forces without the United States being in the middle. That's been a problem for a long time. We've got to address that, and we've got to help Lebanon do what Lebanon needs to do. I think there should be an expectation that Lebanon should be able to secure the terrain within their own borders, but they've been unable to do that for a variety of reasons. One of those being Hezbollah and this kind of weird organization of their government they have, where Hezbollah is both political and this security element here. And of course, the security element has been decimated to a pretty significant degree, but the political element is still there. So we have to help. We have to help Lebanon move through that, and it would be to our interest to do that. I mean, imagine how much more stable that would be if there was collaboration, cooperation between the Lebanese armed forces and the Israeli defense forces along a common border.
Do you imagine that we'll ever see that southern bit of Lebanon returned to Lebanon?
I certainly hope so. I certainly hope in the long run it is. And, I think the Lebanese armed forces should be the ones that should be protecting their own sovereignty.
General, it's great to see you here. Thank you so much for joining me on the record.
All right, thank you. Good to be with you.